Tonight, a debate like no other. In a city that spent years recovering from the impacts of the pandemic, protests, and violence. This evening, the top candidates share their vision for Portland's future and how they lead through its biggest challenges. From homelessness to emergency response, to much ado about taxes, in a first-of-its-kind election, with voters set to mark not just their number one, but rank their top 6. This is the debate for Portland, Maine.
You're looking at 5 of the top candidates on a very crowded debate floor tonight, one of who will likely become the first mayor of the Rose City under a brand new form of government. A very good evening. I'm David Mulco with KGW News, along with our partners at the Oregonian. Before we introduce the candidates, let's run through our ground rules. Candidates, over the next hour, you will have 60 seconds to answer questions from myself and my co-moderator, Shane Dixon Kavanaugh, Portland City Hall reporter at the Oregonian. We will pose some questions to all of you, others to individuals. Shane and I reserve the right to follow up and grant additional time. And along the way, we'll also include some questions from our viewers and our readers. You also each have one 30-second free speech pass to extend your time or chime in. Plus, keep in mind, we might ask for a show of hands to indicate your agreement or disagreement on an issue. Raise it high so we can see it, please. And we will finish everything off with a lightning round. So with that, let's introduce the candidates, starting with Portland City Commissioner Mingus Mapps, first elected in 2020. Next to him, Leave Osthus, an author, writer, musician, and stripper, also known as Viva Las Vegas. Then we have Rene Gonzalez, our newest Portland City Commissioner, who took office in 2022. He is followed by Portland City Commissioner Carmen Rubio, who was first elected in 2020. And finally, Keith Wilson, the president and CEO of Titan Freight Systems, a regional transportation company. Candidates, welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for being here. I will be watching the time, and Shane will kick us off with the opening question. Shane?
Thank you so much, David. Our first question is going to be for all of the candidates. What grade would you give the city's homeless response over the past couple of years? And without pointing fingers at Multnomah County, what specifically would you do differently as mayor? We're going to go alphabetically on this first one, which means Mr. Gonzalez, please start.
I'd give us a C. You know, we've done a good job on bringing on task sites and safe rest villages. These have been significant interventions in a positive way for the crisis on our streets. It's actually leading to people getting into housing at rates that wasn't true with congregate shelter. That's been pretty darn good, in particular over the last 2 years. Where we've not been great is on enforcement. Again, some of our hands are tied by previously Ninth Circuit law, by Oregon law, but we need to be much firmer on enforcement when it comes to our right-of-ways, our sidewalks, and our parks. The pendulum is swinging there. I think we're getting more and more committed to that as a community, but we need to double down on that. So I think we can do a much better job there. Separately, you know, we're not doing a good enough job of producing housing in our region, particularly middle housing, and that is having a longer-term negative impact on our ability to house everyone in our community. So overall, kind of middle of the road, some substantial strengths and weaknesses.
Thank you. Mr. Mapps.
C+. We've done incredibly innovative work around our safe rest villages, which are moving people from our sidewalks into safe spaces. What we're finding is as they move there, after about 90 days or so, people are stabilizing. We need to have a partner over at the county so that folks can move on to supportive housing. One of the things you'll see me do as mayor is to negotiate a contract with the county, which states that all of our clients in our safe rest villages who complete the program will receive housing vouchers so that they can move into more stable housing. As mayor, one of the things you'll also see me do is to enforce our camping ban. I want to be clear with everybody: being homeless is not a crime. However, being houseless also doesn't give you the right to ignore the law. So we're going to emphasize basically normal order back in the city again. I believe that if we follow these steps, and I can house 1,000 people in the first year as being mayor, and in 3.5 years we can end street camping in Portland.
Thank you, Mr. Mapps. Ms. Osthus.
Thank you. I would give us a D, and it's not for lack of trying. I see so many people offering amazing services to our unhoused, but clearly we're failing many people. There's so much suffering, so much death and addiction. I believe that with better coordination, that many of our nonprofits that are working so hard could be more efficacious. I would like to see services coordinated from the state down, which would kind of make this county versus city issue not so much of an issue. So coordination from the top down, making sure that these services serve together to meet everybody at every point of their journey, so that when somebody enters the system, whether it's deflection or a hospital, that they have somebody to guide them through, ultimately to supported housing and to becoming productive members of our society.
Thank you. Ms. Rubio.
Yes, I would give us an incomplete, actually, because I think our work here isn't done, but solidly on the way to a C. And the reason is when I first started in my term, one of the first things that we did was pass a policy that made it very much easier to build out shelters with services on site. And so I led a delegation that went down to LA and visited these sites. And by far, these were the ones that had the best outcomes. So I'm pleased to see that the wheels are turning. We're having more success with these sites, but we're not done building the system. We're doing our side of the street, but we really need our partners at the county to also hold their corner of the system as well, so that we can have continued success throughout multiple jurisdictions.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. The grade would be an F. So last year we grew unsheltered homelessness 887 souls. So for what my opponents are going to tout as a success, it continues to grow at a pace where now Portland has the highest unsheltered homeless rate in the nation, except for a few other cities. Letting people suffer and die on our streets is unacceptable. And then we have this course of action where we're going to apply tough love without love. That's just cruelty. I believe that every person in Portland deserves a bed every night, not near a school, not near a business, not in a doorway or a tent. And we have to address this as an urgent humanitarian crisis. And if we do that and we address this critical first priority, then we can address all the other associated issues like behavioral health, addiction, and our economic crisis, and then we can begin to repair, restore, and revitalize our city. So I'll end with an F, complete failure.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
All right, we're going to continue with homelessness, as this is one of the issues that's top on most voters' minds here. This is a raise your hand for you all. Raise your hand if you believe the threat of jail time or time in jail is necessary as one strategy to compel some unsheltered people to accept shelter and seek services. Necessary as one strategy. That's everybody except Ms. Osthus. Ms. Osthus, why not?
I don't see the carceral system as serving any benefit to a person who's already vulnerable. I would like to see there be abundant housing and abundant services, well staffed to support those people. Maybe alternative shelter for people who really don't want the shelters we offer. Beyond safe rest villages, maybe like Right to Dream 2 type of model. But we have a lack of criminal defense attorneys. That whole system is suffering. Jail is not a place for anybody suffering from addiction or poverty.
Thank
period.
you. Another raise your hand here for all candidates
David,
here.
may I
Mr. Wilson,
please?
just briefly, go ahead.
Just to apply the 30 seconds. So yes, jail time, we have to enforce our codes without a doubt. There has to be that threat. We don't necessarily want to arrest someone, but we also are missing that very important link. We have to provide shelter first. So just going to rest, just using tough love without providing shelter is missing one of those very important resources to allow our city to function properly. We've done it in the past. We need to do it again. Provide shelter first. And then if arrest comes to it, then so be it. But we can't let or leave people on the street.
Thank you, Mr.
Can I
Wilson.
use my
Another raise
30
your hand.
seconds?
Of course, Mr. Gonzalez, go ahead.
With all due respect, I appreciate Keith's focus on congregate shelter, but his plan is going to make it worse. It's going to lead to people dying in congregate shelter. The acuity we see on our streets with untreated mental illness and addiction will lead to people dying if we don't have closely monitored medical intervention in our shelter system. He's trying to sell a cheap model. It's also going to breed chaos and crime to neighborhoods. If we have invested a lot in our shelters' security in the areas around it, it's an essential component to intervention here. So trying to sell us something on the cheap and then bad mouthing the people who want to enforce the law is not good enough, Keith.
Mr. Wilson, I'm going to ask you to hold on that. I'm going to ask that very question to you in a minute. Ms. Rubio, did you want to use your 30 seconds here?
I will hold on to my 30
Okay, let's do that. A quick raise your hand. Raise your hand if you believe the city or county should hand out or provide funding to groups that hand out tents or tarps. Anyone? Ms. Rubio, why?
I believe that right now in today's world where we're facing elements, I think it's cruel to not allow certain life-saving equipment or gear when needed, when, for example, before an ice storm or a winter storm. So in certain situations, it is appropriate because we have to think of the person and the lives at stake.
Thank you. One more raise your hand here. Raise your hand if you believe the city of Portland should continue to fund the Multnomah County Joint Office of Homeless Services, should continue to fund. It's everybody except Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Mapps. Mr. Mapps, why not?
This is something I've been clear on during my entire time on council. The city of Portland needs to be focused on reducing the absolute number of people on the streets. I'll tell you, the county is fundamentally interested in trying to solve for a different problem, which is to avoid people falling into homelessness. That's an important problem, but it's not the problem that the city is trying to solve. Also, the city hands over tens of millions of dollars to the county every year, but we have no benchmarks for what those dollars are going to be spent on. I think this is unacceptable. In order to solve this problem, the city and the county have to work together, but we have to have a clear understanding of what the city does and what the county does. And I will tell you, the agreements that we've worked out with the county over the last several years don't do any of that. And frankly, that is one of the reasons why we see so many tents on our streets.
Thank you, Mr. Mapps. Questions on homelessness for each of you individuals here. Mr. Wilson, this is for you. You've set a goal of ending unsheltered homelessness by the end of June. Ms. Rubio referred to it as magical thinking. Mr. Gonzalez said the Wilson plan would, quote, bring chaos and crime to a church near you. He likely said something to the same effect just now. How do you respond to the criticism, and whether or not you meet that goal? What is your plan for the following 3.5 years?
So essentially you're saying it's ambitious. And so it's not ambitious to leave our neighbors on the street. We're wasting hundreds of millions of dollars right now, and we're getting nothing, no results. There's no accountability. It's not ambitious to want to care for our community. And about 6 years ago and previous, we always relied on nighttime emergency shelters, and we closed them all. Shane, you wrote an article just this last week, pardon me, your colleague Lillian wrote an article that Boston only has nighttime shelters. We have none here in Portland. Philadelphia only uses nighttime shelters. We have none. We elected to close them. All I'm doing is using a basic model that's used in most cities in the United States with far lower unsheltered rates than we have. That's not extraordinary. That's not far-reaching. That's just caring for our community. Again, we're not going to let our neighbors live and die on the streets as I'm not going to let people live on and die on the streets as your mayor.
And Mr. Wilson, just the second part of that question here briefly, 30 seconds max, please.
Sure.
What's your plan for the following 3.5 years beyond congregate shelters? Where do you go from there?
So we will provide the needs of those individuals as they come in. We know that when you provide shelter, we have many people, or 35% of the people in Portland are what's called homeless upon arrival. So when you have a community that allows or fosters that behavior of tents and RVs without managing your codes, you're drawing others from the housed and from other communities into our community. By enforcing our community safety laws like no camping and no RVs, you allow those individuals to make a decision. Come inside and we'll care for you. If not, then we'll help you get back home.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Rubio, this is for you. Your campaign website says the following, quote, Carmen knows that Portland's best days are still ahead and that solutions are within reach. So walk us through a specific policy solution related to homelessness or housing that, if elected, you believe you could achieve during your first year or two as mayor.
Absolutely. One of the ones that we're working on right now, as soon as we're ready to move forward and as soon as I get elected, I'm going to implement a 90-day fast pass squarely aimed at housing, catalyzing more housing development. So the thing is here, and most people know that we have a notorious system for permitting, and this would actually specifically give people who are interested in developing housing, and I'm talking housing at all levels, but we're absolutely hoping this will incentivize affordable and middle income housing. That if you have all your financial material ready, your capital stack ready to go, and you are going to build housing, we will guarantee that you will get a permit issued in 90 days. And so that, we're hoping, can tell everybody that we are open for business, and we particularly want to make sure that housing is on the list.
And Ms. Rubio, just briefly, why hasn't that been done over the last 4 years?
That's a great question. And I think that up until this time, we've been benefiting from, an organic, landscape where we had plenty of housing development occurring, and things were in a better place. But post-pandemic, we're seeing the impacts of no development to low development. It's impacting our Bureau of Permitting. It's impacting the availability of housing for everyone along the continuum. So what we have to do right now as a city is what's within our scope to do, and turn every lever that we have to catalyze that development.
Thank you.
Ms. Osthus, what's your approach when it comes to the idea of housing first? Should more housing and more affordable housing be the primary response to homelessness in Portland? And if so, what's your plan to achieve that?
Thank you. Yes, the number one indicator of houselessness is the cost of living. The higher the cost of living, the more a community has an unsheltered population. I live very close to the bone. I rent rooms to low-income people. I've had tenants move into their cars. We really need more no-income, low-income housing. And I see a downtown that is bombed out. It's vacant buildings with people sleeping in doorways. So somehow the city has got to reimagine our downtown and fill it with people, bring life back to it literally by offering housing, use whatever levers the city can to buy back distressed properties so that the city has more control over what rents to charge. And very soon, as people move in, as people have families, artists, musicians can live and work downtown, we will have a thriving downtown that will activate all of our neighborhoods.
Mr. Mapps, last month, a fire that sparked at a homeless camp in Southeast Portland to a neighboring apartment building, displacing 14 people. Yeah. Neighbors and management said they had reported issues with the camp to the city multiple times and literally did not know where to turn. What do you say to those neighbors, and how will things be different if you're elected mayor?
Well, absolutely. This is a matter of the city being accountable. I think BDS and perhaps the fire department failed to fully inspect that building. I think this has been a longstanding issue. I'm the candidate in this race who is consistently focused in on getting the nuts and bolts of government to work correctly. So we'll get our inspectors out to look at properties, make sure they're safe when they're not safe. We will hold folks accountable. You'll notice that as the commissioner in charge of PBOT, I'm the guy who hired dozens of new folks to go out and patrol our city to look for cars that haven't been registered, and we're handing out tickets. That wasn't a politically popular thing to do, but it's one of the things that we need to do in order to have safe streets and to have working business districts. And I'll bring that same kind of accountability and that focus on the basics to the mayor's office when I have the privilege of serving in that space.
Mr. Mapps, thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, a few weeks ago, we reported on a homeless shelter in the works in North Portland. The county held what it called a grand opening for it in June, and as of late September, it had yet to open. The Joint Office of Homeless Services has said it was waiting on a permit following inspections. The city says the county has never scheduled said inspection. Viewer Cassandra Marshall in Northeast Portland also raised this question. How would things be different with you as mayor?
Well, getting up shelter as quickly as possible and getting through permit process for housing as well is an essential component to addressing both the front end and sort of the tail end of homelessness. Getting people off the streets into shelter 100% has to be a priority for the city of Portland. I like Commissioner Rubio's idea on the 90 days for residential building on the tail end of housing. Those are all essential components of it. So clearly, I've been the strongest voice for enforcement in the region when it comes to camping. I'd like to be the strictest mayor on the West Coast when it comes to outdoor camping and outdoor drug use. I think that's essential to send that message that we are no longer an enablement community in the city of Portland and Multnomah County. So I think that's a decisive shift in what we've attempted over the last 20 years with respect to homelessness.
Thank you.
All right, candidates, we're going to move on to public safety, addiction, and mental health. With that comes a viewer question for all of you. This is from Kim Norris in Northwest Portland. Take a look.
What role do you envision for Portland street response going forward?
All right, thanks to Kim for that. Portland Street Response, the alternative to police that assists some people experiencing mental health and behavioral health crises citywide. Ms. Rubio, let's start with you. What is your vision?
My vision for Portland Street Response is for them to become part of this integrated, comprehensive first responder approach that we have from the city. We need the right responders in the right roles. And what that means is Portland Street Response, which is a very innovative approach, should be fully funded, and it should have stability, not just in financial stability, but also political stability, so that it can actually fulfill the ideal of the model, and we can see the outcomes and see how it impacts the rest of the systems. It hasn't ever been up to scale as intended, and we need to give it that chance so that we can actually see its impact and know how we can even enhance it further.
Just briefly, maybe 15 seconds, what does scale look like for you? Because right now they have 34 full-time staff with 3 more on the way. They operate 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. citywide. So what does that look like?
It would be 24 hours and across the whole city.
All right. Ms. Osthus, what's your vision for Portland Street Response?
I would like to see it expanded and fully funded, and to increase the utility of it. I understand that as it is now, there's a lot of things PSR cannot do. They can't transport. They can't go inside of a building. So the cops sometimes are loath to call them because they wouldn't necessarily be helpful in many scenarios. So I would love to work with the police force and PSR to find how can we increase the utility to really relieve some of the burden on our police force. And absolutely fully staffed. I have a neighbor who's been at PSR for 6 years, and he has compassion fatigue. He needs a sabbatical. He sees so much difficulty out there, and so as abundant staffing 24/7, and again, not a political football, so it's funded, so these people know they have a job the next year, and we can hire the very best people because they know that there's a job the next year, and to understand and support them in their work, because it is hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Maps.
I'm a huge supporter of PSR. Indeed, I have been an architect for PSR. I used to be the commissioner in charge of 911 back when PSR was a pilot project in Lentz. And as the commissioner in charge of 911, one of my responsibilities was to work closely with that team to figure out how we grow that. We managed to grow it from a tiny pilot project in one single neighborhood to 95 different neighborhoods. Now, the next steps for this program, I believe, require developing greater coordination with the county. Too often our PSR folks show up and are only able to offer someone a bottle of water or a granola bar. My goal is when they go out to interact with our PSR clients, we're able to do a warm handoff to services which exist at the county. That kind of coordination, frankly, has been missing from the city, and frankly, there has not been a lot of hunger on the current councils to develop that kind of coordination and write it into the contracts we have with the county. But that is the vision I have for both PSR, and that is also the vision I have for our city.
Appreciate you all keeping to time here, allowing us to tackle as much as possible. Mr. Gonzalez, what's your vision?
Well, it's been a significant intervention to alleviate police responses, right? So the challenge with PSR is that they often are responding to the same person multiple times over a period of time. And invariably, you're going to end up requiring a more significant medical intervention and sometimes law enforcement intervention with the same client, the same person. So it's done a good job of alleviating the front end of it, but it's not necessarily leading to systemic change that I think a lot of folks hope for. I do think that it needs to be more tightly tied to the county. I think at some point we should discuss whether it's better run in the joint office or Multnomah County, in part because they have such strong behavioral health focus. And second, the possibility of transport is a good one. I think that is a possibility. We have to bargain through that to get that really solved, but that is a viable option. The other piece to talk about here is our CHAT program, which is often medical intervention for those on our streets. So we have been able to scale that quite effectively in overdose response and addiction withdrawal. Thank you.
And that's time. And CHAT is the community health assess and treat that's under Portland Fire. They're 2-person teams. They respond to overdose calls. They also provide access to medication for opioid use disorder. Mr. Wilson, Portland Street Response, your vision for that program?
Very much a supporter of that, but we need to expand its mission. So Mayor Bud Clark and Don Clark, who was the executive director of Central City Concern 30 years ago, started a sobering center. They used cheers to transport those individuals to the sobering center. We closed ours in 2019 in the middle of an epidemic. Portland Street Response should have an expanded mission to include transport to a sobering center that the mayor of Portland should have set up 5 years ago, but we still are without, and we keep blaming the county. Those are citizens. Those are Portlanders that we're leaving on the street. Portland Street Response is a perfect opportunity. We have some days with just two of the vehicles out. When we have 6 that are available, we need to supercharge this, fully fund it, and then utilize it to replace firefighter callouts and police callouts to care for our community members and to help those hundreds of individuals who are going to die every year because we don't have a sobering center way to address the addiction crisis on our street.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Just briefly, raise your hand. Does anyone not support allowing PSR to transport patients? Everybody does. Okay. Another raise your hand here. Raise your hand if you feel safe walking through downtown Portland, particularly at night, if you feel safe. Anyone? Ms. Rubio, Mr. Mapps, Mr. Gonzalez, you're there. Ms. Osthus, Mr. Wilson, you are not. Shane, go ahead.
Next question is going to be for all the candidates. At 881, Portland has about half the number of sworn police officers per capita as the national average, according to the FBI. Right now, we also have some 86 vacancies. In your view, what's the right size for a Rose City police force? How would you fund any expansion, ensure vacant positions are filled, and retain existing officers? Ms. Osthus, we're going to start with you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I was just watching KGW earlier, and it said the right number is about 163 to put us on par with cities like other cities of our size. It is true we need to have more policing, and it would be easily funded by just taking away from the overtime that so many of our cops are being paid right now. That's very, very expensive to have too few police officers, and they're working too hard and they're getting burned out. I do think the recruitment arm of it, I am curious why we have so many applicants and so few of them actually get through the background check process. I'm wondering what that background check looks like, City of Portland is very clear. Portlanders are clear about what they want in a public safety officer and what they don't want. So I'm hoping to really partner with ad campaigns to make sure that we get the right people applying that can navigate these very difficult background checks, because we do need more public safety officers for economical reasons and for safety reasons.
And just to clarify, Ms. Osthus, you're saying that your plan to pay for the expansion of a police force is to cut overtime for existing officers?
There will be a pool of money because we spend so much on overtime that it is more expensive to have 880 police when we have earmarked funds for more because of the overtime costs, which are so very expensive.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mapps?
Sure. According to the last numbers that I saw and was able to confirm, I think we have 801 police officers currently in the force, maybe 5 or so retired in the last week or so. I absolutely believe that a city our size should have about 1,200 police officers. We've authorized 885 additional police officers, and we've set aside those funds. So actually, I believe that we can get there. We can increase our force to about 900 literally in the next year. I will tell you, I've also had conversations with the folks in our police bureau who deal with hiring and training, and I have a high degree of confidence that in my first year, I can hire 100 police officers. Now, I'm also aware that the police chief has come forward with his recommendation that we should have about 1,000 police officers. I'll tell you right now, I don't know where we come up with the dollars for that extra 100 police officers to get us to from 900 to 1,000. Frankly, we have some time in order to think about that. But I'm deeply committed to increasing the size.
Well, what I'm hearing from you is that you're saying you can hire 100 new officers next year,
Yep.
But you don't know where the money's going to come from.
No, we have set those dollars aside.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, I mean, I am supported by Portland Police Association, the 3 DAs in the region, because I've centered public safety on the future of the city of Portland, and I understand the challenges they're facing at the ground level. Most important right now is that we have to alter the path in terms of retaining police officers. We've seen incredible attrition from the riots in 2020 going forward. We have simultaneously made some improvements in recruiting. Our pipeline is growing. We have made some changes in state law that's assisting on that. Our academies are filling up, and every swearing-in ceremony, I'm seeing a more diverse workforce entering Portland Police. But our biggest pain point right now is on the retention side of Portland Police, and is essential that your next mayor is a strong advocate for Portland Police, that stands up to them when the loud extremists in our community go after them, as they're apt to do more often in our community, and that we continue to support and protect that pipeline. One last piece here, in terms of where the dollars are going to come, public safety is absolutely at the top of my priorities.
We got to move forward.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. It's a two-pronged question. First of all, we're authorized at 881 officers, and we're at 801. So we need to recruit and add those officers at the earliest, and I'm confident in Chief Day's ability to do that. It's going to take some time because of retirements. The second prong is what are those officers doing during the course of their day? So 50% of the arrests in Portland are of the unsheltered. So again, end unsheltered homeless, provide basic nighttime care, provides care for our sheltered and for our community at large, because providing basic shelter lowers that arrest rate to 2%. We've got a cycle where we're arresting the same few people over and over again, which is denying safety to all of us. A mother walking their child to school, or somebody riding a bus who's unsafe or feels unsafe, because we have a transit system that's being used as a shelter system. By providing nighttime care allows us to reduce our arrests and get back to those officers focused on community policing.
And that's time, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Rubio.
So I absolutely believe that we do need to scale up our officers to match the growth of our city as well. And that requires that we fill our vacancies first. Once we filled our vacancies, as others have mentioned, Chief Day has put out there his plan to scale up the force over the next few years, not just 1 year, over a few years. And so I am going to defer and listen to Chief Day on this, because he's the expert. And so I'm very interested about and following his plan. I'll also say, yes, we have had attrition, but we've also had officers returning to the force as well. And in terms of recruitment, we have had some of the most diverse and varied recruitment that I've seen in a very long time. I've been to several swearings in, as my colleagues have as well, and it's increasingly looking like the Portland of today. And so I feel hopeful for the force and about the changes coming.
Thank you.
Candidates, we're about halfway through. I want to move on to recovery, economy, and taxes. This is for all of you. Portland's Central Business District ended 2023 with the highest vacancy rate of any downtown office market in the country at over 30%. Just last month, we saw U.S. Bank announce it intends to leave the downtown skyscraper that bears its name, with plans to move most of those workers to Gresham. So as mayor, what will you do to reverse the exodus of people and businesses from Portland, as well as attract new ones? Mr. Gonzalez, you're first.
It's really a three-part plan. Prosper Portland needs to be completely redeployed and focused on large projects, including how to maximize our recent TIF district approvals, including for Central City. Prosper Portland has been a social engineering group for the last 10 plus years. Used to do a phenomenal job of bringing big projects into the region, including Pearl District and South Waterfront. We need to use that same focus on big multiplying projects when we talk about Broadway Corridor, OMSI across the river, in Central City. Second, we have to be strong advocates for our taxpayers. Our tax burden is way too high because of Metro and Multnomah County taxes added in recent years. We cannot be number one or two in terms of total tax burden and be successful unless we are offering services to our taxpayers that are commensurate with that tax. And folks aren't seeing that value. So we need some relief in terms of tax burden. Last, as the next mayor, you're gonna be a champion for the city, and you also have to lead. That means requiring your leaders to be in the office every day downtown. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
Certainly, our downtown core, as you noted, 30% office vacancy rate and increasing. If we looked at some of the office vacancy rates of other cities that have recovered, we're losing $3 billion in worker wages and rents alone. So we have to rebuild that back. A couple of ways to do that are to create a vibrant downtown urban core. Again, we have all of these Class A, B, and C offices that have to be focused on converting from offices to residential. There's money out there. The Biden administration just released $10 billion. That's free money. We need to go after it. And then when we try and convert one of these buildings, we have to act nimble. There are cities around the nation that are doing conversions and creating the permits in 2 months. They've added thousands of units in downtown. We haven't added any because of our credits that we're offering for businesses to move into our downtown are complex and difficult. We have to accelerate that. But also, to finish, we have to focus on blocking and tackling. We have to restore public safety and cleanliness to our downtown to welcome an influx of people back to our core.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Rubio.
So for me, I believe that we need an economic development approach that's beyond just Prosper Portland. We can't just delegate those kinds of responsibilities and roles to one agency. It needs to have a more comprehensive approach through the city. We need to be poised and aligned internally to optimize the landscape for businesses so that they can come back. We just also released Advanced Portland earlier this year that provides an economic development framework. And there are some really good things that are in that framework. And also, we've implemented a couple of them. The first being the small business office, which is the first time we've ever had that in the city of Portland for a city of our size. Also, office to housing conversions that we just talked about. The mayor and I passed that recently to incentivize more development. We need more work. It doesn't pencil out as well as we would, but it's a start. We need to be thinking innovatively. We also passed recently the economic impact analysis, which is also the first of its kind in the city for us. So these things should make a difference for business community.
Next time is Rubio.
Ms. Osthus.
Thank you. This is entirely the reason I threw my hat into the ring to run for mayor, is because I work downtown and I've seen its struggles firsthand. We have all these vacant buildings and the cost of living and running a business is too high. So yes, the taxes are too high, and these vacancies, we need office to housing conversions right away. I don't believe in insisting that workers come back downtown. I think that's environmentally unconscionable, but I do see a yearning from my fellow artists to come back downtown and to really make it hum again with activity. So make some of these zombie buildings, as my campaign calls them, make those available for artist studios in the interim until we can get these housing conversions up and running. Make music studios. Once artists come and bring their energy back downtown, support the small businesses that follow them. Make sure that when their window gets smashed, that the city is there to pay for that. Make sure that curbside appeal is the city's responsibility, not just the owners. Okay, that's all my time, but thank you for the question.
Mr. Mapps.
Great question. And I think we all know why downtown is suffering. Businesses and families are fleeing downtown because it's dirty, it doesn't feel safe, and frankly, it's too expensive. We need to focus in on the core problems and the core challenges here. On safety, I believe I can hire 100 cops by the end of my first year as mayor. Homelessness, those tents and needles we see on the streets is one of the reasons why folks are afraid to set down roots and grow a business there. I believe I can house 1,000 people by the end of my first year as mayor, so I will focus in on that. And I believe we also need to focus in on the core of Portland's economy, which is small business. And we all know small businesses are hungry for, frankly, capital. I think we need to reimagine Prosper Portland with a new emphasis on providing small businesses with capital through things like loans, grants, and incentives. And finally, I think it's time that we bring more housing to our downtown. Neighborhoods that do well tend to have a rich mix of both commercial and residential. We don't have enough residential downtown, and I will fix that issue.
And that's time, Mr. Mapps. Quick show of hands here. Raise your hand if you think taxes taken as a whole are too high. That is everybody. Okay, we're going to move on to ethics, leadership, and trust. Shane.
Mr. Wilson, starting with you. You have no public office experience. Why do you believe you're qualified to lead the city, especially under a brand new form of government where the mayor won't set the policy agenda or have veto power over the city council?
So the question is I'm an outsider, and I recognize that, but I'm not new to Portland. You know, I've grown up here, so I know all four corners of our city. This is a powerful position because if you are an effective leader, you're creating your own power base. So the business that I own and operate is the most advanced innovative carrier in the nation, arguably. That same record of innovation I'll bring with me to the city. Operating with a high degree of integrity and accountability, I've built an organization that's based on trust. My team has always trusted me to care for them, and in turn, they've always delivered, and we've always performed at a high standard in a complex operation. It's the same thing that I'll do and provide as mayor for the city of Portland, is to ensure that everybody is cared for, but we operate at a high level of expectation every day to provide the services for all Portlanders.
Thank you.
Ms. Rubio, let's talk about your 150 parking and traffic tickets, your failures to appear in court, 6 driver's license suspensions, largely before you were elected to city council. Then there was an incident last month where you scraped another vehicle while parking and walked away without leaving a note. Our reporting also shows you were ticketed as a sitting city commissioner for an expired vehicle registration, which a year later, according to records, still had not been updated. Given that history, what can you say to reassure voters who may have questions about whether they should trust you with an $8+ billion budget and whether you will be a champion for law and order?
Well, no one is more sorry or embarrassed about those things than I am. And I have since paid all the fees and fines years ago for most of those things. And they're all caught up. But, you know, I hope that voters give me the opportunity to show my commitment to Portland and also to demonstrate just how much I want to engage with them around our big issues of our day, around homelessness, around safety, around housing. These are the critical things that they care about right now. And I hope that I have the chance to engage with them and build that trust with them.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Rubio.
Ms. Osthus, you have no public office and it appears little management experience. You've expressed that as mayor, you'd be a cheerleader for the city. In an interview on Straight Talk with Laurel Porter, you referred to the job as being a, quote, figurehead and, quote, a stage creature. You also indicated you'd hired Keith Wilson to oversee homeless policy. What do you say to voters who may question whether you have the leadership skills and the policy plans to be an effective mayor?
Very fine question. So when I looked at this new form of government, I saw a mayorship that was more of a leader and less in charge of bureaus, less in charge of legislation. And I strongly believe that we need a mayor who can really sing the praises of Portland and reflect the very best parts of Portland to Portlanders, to the nation, to the world. As an artist, my jobs are to listen to everyone, to connect with everyone, and to inspire everyone. And that's exactly what I want in a mayor. Somebody who can collaborate closely with the council, develop relationships with the county, and hire the very best people for the jobs of city manager, for chief of police. All those, I'm a very fast learner. You'll see that in 7 months on the campaign, my entire volunteer staff has come this far, and I am certain that we would do a very fine job running, being the mayor, being the leader of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mapps, while you declared your intention to run for mayor quite early, for months of this campaign, it appears you struggled with fundraising. For example, our reporting shows that around Labor Day, you had about $10,000 cash on hand, but more than $15,000 in unpaid bills.
Sure.
And it also appears you struggled, even as a sitting city commissioner, to attract the 750 small donors that would qualify you for public matching funds, though you eventually did meet the deadline. Why do you think your campaign has struggled, and how confident are you that you can win this race?
I'm very confident that I can win this race. I'll tell you, I've been in office for about 4 years. We have been working literally every day. I started early because I have an enormous amount of responsibility on council. I'll tell you, if you take a look at the number of ordinances that have been introduced in council, the mayor's introduced the most. I've introduced the second most, north of 600. Commissioner Gonzalez, who I love very much and is a respectable civil servant, has introduced about 20 ordinances. I will also point out that every ordinance that I have introduced has passed. One of the reasons why I started early was I knew I had to run 2 campaigns in this cycle. One is for our mayor's race, and one was to actually pass the Fixing Our Streets renewal of our local gas tax. So there was a period of about 4 or 5 months where I literally had to take the time I was normally devoting towards my mayor's race and devote it toward this very important public discussion about how we fund transportation. I will always put the city's needs over my own political career. I will point out that our Fixing Our Streets passed with 70% of the vote, and I expect I can do something similar on election day.
All right, that's time. Mr. Gonzalez, the Portland City Auditor's Office recently reopened an investigation into whether your use of $6,400 in public funds to edit your Wikipedia page violated city campaign finance laws by benefiting your campaign. Oregon Secretary of State is also investigating. Why was it necessary to use taxpayer dollars to update your Wikipedia page, and do you regret doing so?
It's because there's a tremendous amount of misinformation online. And, you know, I've leaned in on some of the hardest policy questions in the city of Portland. When is it right and when is it wrong to do things like handing out tents and tarps? My position on that gets completely misconstrued online. They focus on one stat, like the number of unsheltered, and ignore other stats, like the fact that 70% of those offered shelter in the city of Portland turn it down, or that 40% of our fire deaths and fire injuries are in our encampments. And so we are in an era of tremendous misinformation online. Wikipedia is one of many tools that I have used and will use in the future to try and communicate about these difficult policy issues. And no, I don't regret investing in staff to in terms of teaching them best practices and how to do this online.
So just for clarification, you're fine with sticking taxpayers with that bill?
I am fine training my staff. And Shane, unfortunately, your article was inaccurate in describing the original utilization of those funds. You had to correct it under a threat of a libel suit from the contractor.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with your characterization there, Mr. Gonzalez.
I disagree with you were threatened with libel.
All right,
I mean,
we go back and forth on
I've seen
this.
the email. I'm happy to share it with
Mr. Gonzalez, thank you. You've answered the question. You don't regret it. I want to move on now to topic 5. It is leadership and the transition under the new form of government. Candidates, if you're elected mayor, you'll be the first to govern under a new form of government. You'll hire a city administrator. 12 city councilors will make policy. You will not have veto power or a vote, except in the case of a tie. That brings us to a viewer question. This is from Douglas Johns in the Hazelwood neighborhood. Take a look.
With the new city charter, Portland's next mayor has a unique opportunity to place her or his vision and stamp on the role of mayor. As Portland's new mayor, what will your unique role be?
All right, our thanks to Douglas. We had variations from Janice, George, and Elisa. Thanks to all our viewers here. Mr. Mapps, the question is for you. What do you see as your role in the new form of government? What is your vision as mayor?
Sure. Great question. And I think it's important every Portlander realize and understand how our new form of government works. In the new form of government, council is responsible for setting some broad policy directions for the city. The mayor and the city administrator are responsible for implementing those policies. The mayor is also in a special place in that the mayor will be the only the only elected in City Hall who has a citywide electorate. So you have a citywide vision. One of the things I want to do is to set the North Star for our city, where we end homelessness by the street camping by the end of my first year. I believe that we can make important progress towards making our streets safer. I also think that we can make incredible progress towards our climate goals. And I hope that we can make our city an equitable place where you can prosper and grow and thrive regardless of the color of your skin or where your background comes from.
Thank you, Mr. Mapps.
Sure.
Mr. Gonzalez and Ms. Rubio, this next question is for both of you. We had this question, as did Bud Fulis, a viewer in Mount Tabor. How would you govern and deliver on your promises with the majority of city council that didn't share your approach when it comes to issues like homelessness or public safety? Mr. Gonzalez, please start.
Well, one of the essential components is changing how we do community engagement and public engagement on these really hard issues. And part of it is working with council to develop committees that are diving into these issues, really digging into the facts and trying to get past emotion. That's a baseline for us to try and be on the same page as much as possible, even if we don't always agree on what the right policy prescription is, at least work on getting shared facts and shared understandings of the realities on the streets. That's partially going to be an education process from those that are responsible for execution to the legislative branch. In other respects, there are areas where there are going to be disagreements, but you work towards common ground every single day and you control what you can control. The mayor will be the ultimate executive and administrative authority in the city of Portland, choosing to delegate as they see fit to the city administrator. And that comes with substantial authority. You also have rulemaking authority. And so you work for common ground, but you also aren't afraid to exert your authority where you have.
And that's time, Mr. Gonzalez.
Ms. Rubio, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. How would you govern and deliver on your promises with a majority of the city council that didn't share your approach when it comes to issues like homelessness or public safety?
Well, we're at a pivotal time for the city, and we have this new form of government, and we have these different roles for mayor. The mayor is not on council anymore. So one of the most critical things that this mayor will do in this new form of government is to build relationships and work with the new council. So we need a mayor that has the temperament, has the ability to bridge divides, and has the ability to sit down with people who have different ideas than them and find that common ground and work towards those policy wins together. We will find that we probably have very similar or same values, but we can disagree on strategy and negotiate that strategy. And with all due respect to my colleagues, some of my colleagues running in this race won't even meet with people that disagree with them. That is something that the mayor cannot do. The mayor must be representative of all Portlanders and leave no one behind.
Thank you. This next question is for Ms. Osthus and Mr. Wilson. Congressman Earl Blumenauer, a Democrat retiring this year, recently told New York Times columnist Nick Kristof, quote, "The inability of progressives, particularly in the Portland metro area, to deal with the nitty-gritty of governing to get something done is just staggering. People are much more interested in ideology than in actual results." To what extent do you agree with the congressman, Ms. Osthus?
I agree with him. I mean, Portland voters passed this new form of government for precisely this reason. It was ineffectual, it was not working. So finally, we're going to have professionals in charge of the bureaus. That should have a lot more utility. We're going to have representatives from each neighborhood, from East Portland for the first time, from North Portland for the first time, gathering downtown. And so all of our Portlanders will be heard. This is a radical change, and it's so exciting. And I hope that Earl feels excitement too. And then I think that's why we're all activated to be in this race, because there is so much at stake. And the mayor will be not have as much power. It's a weak mayor system, but I think that that's appropriate. And I know at least two of my colleagues here preferred a strong mayor system, but I love this idea of the legislators, the bureau leaders leading, and the mayor just reflecting the spirit of Portland, being the face of Portland, and reflecting the heart and soul of the very best Portland that we know.
But to clarify, do you agree with the congressman's characterization that progressive Portlanders have placed ideology ahead of results?
It's just briefly a yes or no. We've got.
Oh, okay. Progressive Portlanders. I believe that Portland's progressives have empathy and compassion in spades, and therefore they are changing the government to be more efficacious.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Osthus. Mr. Wilson.
No, it's not progressives. There has to be progress in progressive, though. It's failed leadership. That's what we're experiencing in Portland. You know, my opponents had years to build a coalition, to collaborate and deliver results, and they haven't. It comes down to an individual leadership and a lack of understanding and moving our community forward. There is not progressive or conservative, anybody who leaves thousands of your neighbors on the street to suffer, that brings our economic opportunity down, that brings our city to the point where we're a national symbol of failed politics and policies. It's not about being progressive. It's about having the ability to see a vision, to be innovative, to put that vision into play and recognize you're going to fail along that path and then course correct, improve, and then try again. We've stopped innovating in Portland. We used to be the most exceptional city in the United States, the most livable community in America, and we've stopped moving ourselves forward. We were once progressive, and we've stopped moving and working with one another, and we're leaving our community members
and that's
to
time,
suffer.
Mr. Wilson. Thank you, candidates. Time for the lightning round. We're almost done here in this section. Unless otherwise specified, keep your responses to a single sentence at the very most. Let's begin with some issues. Viewer Tebber Kennedy asks, would you be willing to spend a night in a congregate shelter or tiny house village shelter? Mr. Maps.
Yes, I would.
Ms. Osthus.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Ms. Rubio.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
I have multiple times already.
Should Portland keep, amend, or eliminate the arts tax? Mr. Wilson.
We should amend it.
Ms. Rubio.
Amend.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Amend.
Ms. Osthus.
Amen.
Mr. Maps.
Amen.
Portland has an $8.2 billion budget. What is one specific thing you would like to cut or streamline for savings, Mr. Maps?
Our permitting system.
Ms. Osthus.
I'd second that.
Mr. Gonzalez.
We need to get back to straight line staffing for public safety.
Ms. Rubio,
Permitting.
Mr. Wilson.
We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on unsheltered homelessness. End it and save those funds.
What should Portland name its new WNBA expansion team, Mr. Wilson?
Oh, goodness gracious. Can I defer and then get back to it?
Ms. Rubio,
Ooh,
Mr. Gonzalez,
Phoenixes.
Ms.
I like
Osthus,
that.
Neo boys.
Mr. Maps.
I'll leave that up to the people.
All right, final question for all of you. Which of your opponents do you most admire and why? Mr. Maps.
I will tell you, I know all these folks quite well. I consider them to be friends.
That's a sentence. Ms. Osthus.
I very much admire all of them, yes.
Gonzalez.
Especially Carmen. I'm a huge fan.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Mingus.
Ms. Rubio.
leave.
And Mr. Wilson.
Integrity and accountability matter. Mingus.
All right. Thank you, candidates. That wraps up the KGW Oregonian debate in the race for Portland mayor. Thanks to all of you for an engaging, respectful, and insightful conversation. Election day is 3 weeks away. A quick reminder here, under ranked choice voting, you can rank up to 6 candidates in this race. On behalf of Shane Dixon Kavanaugh and all of us at KGW News, I'm David Molko. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote.